Okay, do 7. I hope you would have folded any action there, at least. Alright. You can take another stab at it. There's so many draws. There's a flush draw, there's some straight draws. There's a bunch of straight draws, I should say. I think he would have heard from him if he had a king. Possibly if you would have heard from him if he had an 8. Now you're just hoping that you show down the best hand. And you didn't. Yeah, I don't like the calling turn, calling river. Well, they didn't have to call river here, but calling turn, hoping that you have the best hand, hoping you hit your 2 pair or your trips. Try and take the aggressive lead if you can, or continue the aggression when he doesn't show any aggression in return on the flop. Otherwise, again, you're just hoping to have the best hand. You're not giving yourself multiple ways to win the hand, or to win the pot, I should say. Again, I like the idea of betting, but the bet size is still a bit big. Now, so here we come in for the min raise finally with a less than premium hand, and he folds. A bit too big with the flop bet, but yeah, I like that. Raise pre, when he checks to you, bet again. Unless he has something here, he's got to fold, and it's really hard for him to have something in any situation. That's how better players win heads-up matches, is by picking up all those pots when nobody has anything, which is what he did here. I'd like to see you do that a lot more. Alright, did it again. Nice. Not sure, again, the bet sizing is a bit big, but at least the instinct to bet there is what I like. Here's another spot where you could have done the same thing. Now you're done. I don't like to limp with 10-4. I like to play more raise fold poker heads up rather than limp, and then sometimes raise and sometimes fold poker. Take the betting lead and pick up the pots post flop when your opponent misses. 10-4, again, you're basically hoping you hit something. Alright, I like the second bet there, even though the board is getting very straight dry. Again, well, obviously he's not going to get off an 8, but I think when he checks the river, I don't think he has the 8. Will he fold a jack? No, probably not. But I think you would have heard from him before if he had the jack. So either he has a missed straight draw, he's calling down with a 3, maybe he's playing ace high. He was playing ace high. So a river bet he might have gotten a call there. But I think if you thought through the hand a bit more, you could have figured out that he wasn't stronger than you, or strong, full stop. Yeah, so I would like to see a river bet there. Try to get thin value from your opponent when he has a hand marginal, or even more marginal than yours, which he will most of the time, considering he's playing so many hands. Probably bet your straight draw there on the flop. Now we bet it. Now we have bottom pair. Yeah, I wouldn't mind trying to get a bet in here. It's against an opponent like this, who on the last hand you saw him show down ace high. He had nothing. You see, there's busted straight draw. Try to get some value from him. There you go. I don't like the bet size. I think bet sizing is so erratic in this tournament, but you got to be more consistent with your bet sizing. You know, you're either too big or too small. You got to find that middle ground. As I said in a previous video, I think picking a percentage of the pot size might be a good idea. You know, say if you want to make it simple, pick 50% and bet 50% of the pot with your bluffs, with your value bets, and that way you'll be less easy to read. Bit more consistency, I think, in the bet sizing. Queen 10, I like to see a raise here. We saw it, just not from you. Alright, well here he's coming with the weak lead, so I think, obviously not folding, I'd like to see a raise here. Wow. That was fairly weakly played, especially when you bet the river, giving you, look at this, 9.2 to 1, which means if you call and you are right that you have the best hand only 10% of the time, it's a profitable call. You have to call 600 chips to win 55.20, which is in the middle. You only have to be right 10% of the time. You have to consider your pot odds when making calls or folds on the river. You're definitely winning this hand 10% of the time, easily. You may be winning this hand 30 to 40% of the time, and you're going to lose 600 more chips, but it's definitely more than 10%. So that's a serious error. That's a serious leak. You're giving away chances to win pots. When wow, that's a I'm a little flabbergasted at that. You got to make those calls. Even though your gut might say, well, he's obviously beating me. Is he beating you more than 90% of the time? No, probably not. He will be beating you a lot of the time, but it won't be more than 90% of the time. I can tell you that much. That is a pot odds call that you need to be making. Hope we see a raise here. The ace-8. Yeah, got to be a bit bigger at a position with a strong hand like that. All right, we see the bet, and he folds. Good bet on the turn. I would have liked to have seen that on the flop. It's a lot safer to make that bet on the turn, because when the board pairs and he hadn't led at it on the flop, it obviously doesn't have anything. So think about making that bet on the flop before the board gets a bit wetter on the turn. Otherwise, I like the bet. The bet sizing again, a bit too big. I like that lead. So what do we do? What are we looking at here? Does he have a 6? Is he just flatting with a 6? Well, he could have a 6, but a player like this who's calling so many of your flop bets, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he's calling with any number of straight draws, any number of pairs, ace high, which is no good now, but maybe king highs, maybe queen highs even. I think I'd like to see another bet here, a bit bigger, but it got the job done, but it was a bit too small for my taste. I like the follow through, but again, the sizing was a bit too small. Alright, we're going to raise here, I hope. Yep, that's fine. 3x is fine if that's what you choose to do. The weak lead. You're at least calling here, I hope. Yes. Okay, I wouldn't mind seeing a raise, but ace high is good such a large portion of the time against a player who's leading out for these small bets at almost any flop, or a lot of the time. I shouldn't say almost any flop, but he's a good percentage of the time he's leading out with such small bets into such large pots. He's betting 1/6 of the pot. He's been doing that a lot. So ace high could be the best hand here. You could have a flush draw. You could have, I was gonna say, who knows with this guy, but you got to call there at least one time with position and ace high. All right. So what do you do here? Well, he doesn't have the jack. Why is he, mashing such a big bet into if he has quads? We could probably put him on some kind of middle pair, or at the 6 at the very least. I would, if you think he has a lot of 6s, I would consider calling here. If you think he's mashing away with a flush draw, you can call here. You might even raise here. This screams weakness to me. He's telling you, please go away by betting so big. I don't mind your fold, but you consider making a move there. Yeah, I don't like the call with the 10-6 suited there. Oh, raise got through. Plan the parade. We lead out here. We do. Keep betting. Against this guy, you gotta call this bet. No. I mean, there's so many draws there, sure, but he's making min-raise. You have top pair. I think you need to see at least the river. Yeah, well, there you go. What a genius, huh? He turned the nuts and got you off it. What do I know? King 5, I'd like to see a raise. A6, I'd like to see a raise. 10-8, we can come in for a raise. Again, if you're going to call his min raise, why not make the raise yourself and take the betting lead? That betting lead is so valuable. Now what are you going to do? If you had the betting lead here on this board, and he doesn't have, say, a queen or a jack, or puck fives or straight draw, he can't lead out on you. But because he took the betting lead, he can lead at you with anything. He could have pocket twos here. He could have, it's possible, he could have deuce 3 suited or something ridiculous like that if he's looking to make a move. But he can do that with the betting lead, with c-betting the flop. Well, okay, so don't bet 1200. Oh, okay. Bet again. Now you can bet 1200, perfectly nice. Alright. No, he checks the river. He does not have the flush. He does not have the flush. This is another spot where you got to bet here. I know it's a scary looking board. There's, a bunch of straight draws. Or at least one straight draw that came through. There's a flush draw that came through. You have top 2 pair against a guy who's shown a willingness to call you down light. You check. Well, turns out he did have the flush, but you might have been able to get him off the 7 high flush, which is another option we didn't talk about. But I think you got to take the bet there on the river. He's obviously weak given the patterns he's shown. He would have let out with a strong hand on the river. So you got to bet your 2 pair there. Get value from, maybe he has just a 9, maybe he has just an 8. I think he missed the bet there. So we're under 20 big blinds time. This is when you should start considering 3-bet jamming whenever he raises the button. Not whenever, but when you have reasonable hands to re-raise all in with. It's a good size. Anytime you get less than 20 big blinds and you're looking to 3-bet, go all in, you're giving him too good of a price to call. It's kind of either now or never. You got to maintain that 20 or greater big blind stack. Just something to consider. That goes for full ring as well as for heads up. Alright, well, we're never getting away from this hand. Alright, so he called a pot size bet on that board. Get a lot of money in here. Okay, so here's a spot where you have 3 times the pot, a bit less than 3 times the pot right now. Try to size your bet so that a pot size shove doesn't look like isn't too big. A good rule of thumb is kind of how I determine to do that is you subtract the size of the pot from the size of your stack, which is about, say, 6,000, and divide it by 3. If you bet 2,000 into this pot and he calls, there will be 7,700 in the pot. You will have 7,500 in your stack. That's a perfectly good size to jam on the river and not look like an overshove, and maybe he calls you hoping you have a misdraw. Yeah, but I mean, you can figure out other ways to do that, but sizing your looking ahead to further streets where you can set up a shove and it not look like a bluff is one of the trickier mathematical elements of Hold'em. I'm not sure if I explained that perfectly well, but if you have a question about that, ask in the comments. Anyway, what I usually do in spots like this is I figure out the difference between my stack and the pot. I bet about 1/3 of that number, which sets up a nice pot size shove on the river. That's just a nice way of doing math on the fly, learning these little tricks to quickly to get the sack and to get the pot the size you want it to be. As it stands, this is probably a bit too small of a bet. I think you're begging him to call. Yeah, and what you wanted to happen was have the pot bigger than your stack, so you can just shove the river and hope he calls you. Now it's too big. Your stack is a bit too big to shove legitimately. So you're stuck making another weak bet. He calls, and see, look what he was calling you down with. I think you have to be able to juice the pot a bit more against a player who's willing to call light like this. Like, there's no showdown value in bottom paired 2 kicker, right? So if he's thinking on that level where he's just, oh, I have a pair, I hope I win, I call, get more money in the pot, make him pay to make those bad calls. 10-4, that's quite the unreasonable hand to play. I wouldn't even limp with that. I like the flop bet, but you can find better hands to play pre-flop than 10-4. Like, for example, kings. All right, we come up for the min raise. He calls. All right, here's a safe flop. In general, I would say this is a bad bet size. But since you've been doing it this whole time, and now you actually have a monster, I like that you're staying consistent. In these spots, you're usually either betting 600 or you're betting 2400. And so if you had all of a sudden gone to 1200 now, then he might think, well, what does that mean? I'm confused, I fold, or I'm, whatever. But if he's like, well, she's always betting the size of the pot, and so here she goes betting the size of the pot again, it doesn't mean she has it, he may be more inclined to call with, a weak 10 or even a 9, or knowing him, a 4. He does call. Don't be scared of the 9, bet again. I think you're letting him off the hook by betting so big. Yeah. I like because this situation was rather new, where you fired the second bullet on the turn. You had been doing that a lot. You kind of been shutting down when he called your big flop bets. I think making an oversized bet like that is showing a bit too much strength. I would probably try and, at that point, bet smaller, show weakness, and so he comes along with a weak hand. But you got some value, so there's hope for you yet. Let's see, let's come with a raise for the pocket 2s. Let's see your lead. Nice. Maybe put in a raise here with the king 9. A bit bigger would be better, but at least put the raise in. Get the betting lead. Now we lead out with top pair. Alright, so we're starting to even off the stacks. 35 big blinds to 52 big blinds. So we've come back from what was originally a 3-1 chip deficit, I think, going to heads up. Slow and steady. Okay, so I think this is the first time he's 3-bet us heads up after we opened. And it was only, he clicked it back, meaning he made the min re-raise, the min 3-bet. You raised to 1200, he made it another 1200 to 3000. We're far too strong to fold at this point. The question is, do we want to 4-bet? I don't think so, because this is the first time this has happened. And we can call quite comfortably and play a pot in position, fairly deep stacked. So I'd like to see you call. Yep, two suited. Having 2 suited Broadway cards is a nice backup plan. Well, you're not folding at any point here, are you? Okay, so he leaves out for half the pot, which is unusual for him. The question now is, do we just call or do we raise? I think raising, if you choose to raise, you're shoving. I mean, if you choose to raise even to 6,000, you're leaving yourself with 12,000. The pot's going to be 15,000 at that point. So if if a raise is going to make your stack less than the size of what the pot would be, I think a shove is probably a better line in that situation. I think we're still deep enough that you can call one more street if you want to play a bit more conservatively. I don't think I would, but I think if you're leaning towards playing conservatively against this guy, I think there's still room for you to call and it not be a horrible leak, which is what you do. Oh, well now that is, I don't know, that's ridiculous. He's betting 600 into 12,000, giving you 4%, giving you, 21 to 1 odds. We've attacked this bet before, and I hope we attack it now with a raise. No. Well, you're not folding. Yeah. So the first time he 3-bets us pre-flop, we haven't been very aggressive pre-flop, and the first time he 3-bets us pre-flop, he chooses to do it with 8-7 offsuit, and then the flop bet is fine with the gut shot. And then his bets on the turn the river are just I'm avoiding trying to say clueless, but that's basically what it was. I mean, those bets are never going to get anything to fold, and he obviously doesn't have the best hand with 8 high. Yeah, so I'm not sure what he was doing there on the turn of the river. As for your play, other than say making a raise on the flop, when you choose to not make a raise on the flop, I think you have to just call turn and river there, given the size of the bets he made. Or if you make that same read that you made before, when he makes a minimum bet into a huge pot, then that's a much better time to put in the raise on the turn when he just leads out for a minimum bet. I'd like to have seen you take a more aggressive post-flop line, but after you just call the flop, I think it's fine just calling the turn in the river. And we win a nice pot and we take the chip lead for the first time and heads up. Oh. Alright, I'm not sure what prompted you to do this, but let's see more of it. And then you... Okay. I hope that was a misclick pre-flop. Once you make that move pre-flop, you have to bet this flop. You can bet, 1,400, and to see if he's hit, you have to continuation bet more. If you're going to make this move pre-flop against the guy who's calling everything, you have to bet the flop and hope to continue the pre-flop aggression and hope to take it down without a showdown. As it stands, now you just open the door for him to bomb away at you. Mind that call with the 7-9. Okay, so we're not getting away from this one anytime soon. Let's see a raise here. Nope. Check. He checks. Here you could either lead the river or check call. You're never folding. Yeah, that's too small. If you're gonna lead the river, that's way too small. I like the idea of leading the river, but again, the bet sizing kind of counteracts the positive of leading. Right, so now that he leads into you, you can safely fold your hand. 10-4. Okay, I'm not sure. I like the idea of raising more often pre-flop. I'm not sure why you've chosen such weird hands to do it with. But keep it up. Just remember to follow through on the pre-flop raising with post-flop c-bets. Otherwise, there's really no point in making those moves. Okay, well it looks like this is the last hand, and what a nice hand to play the last hand with. So min raise, he 3-bets. Alright, so based on history, the last time he 3-bet us, he had 8-7 offsuit. That doesn't necessarily mean he's making a move here. And if we remember, the last time he 3-bet, it was a clickback 3-bet, meaning he raised you the same amount you raised him. Now he's making a full-size 3x re-raise. My read would be that he actually has a hand he wants to go with here. So I would make the 4-bet, get more money in the pot when you have, the Mighty Kings. You do. Given the fact that I think he's very strong, I think you can make it a bit larger. And like I mentioned before, if you made it a bit larger, say you made it, something like 9, that would set up a nice flop shove, and it wouldn't look like a bluff. And it would set up a pot size where you could get all the money in on the flop, which is probably what you're going to want to do. He just flats, as I was saying. Well, all the money's going in the flop no matter what here. Well, you're putting all the money in the flop. He checks. You bet. He calls. I'm not sure what's going on here. Why is he leaving himself with 9,000 when there's 29,000 chips in the pot? He's not folding anything. He's fairly committed to this pot. I assume you bet something in the neighborhood of 9,300. He calls. What does he have? The old pocket sixes. So another hopeless call post-flop. Pre-flop, I like his 3-bet pre-flop. I don't like him calling your 4-bet. I think once you 4-bet pre-flop, he has to fold the sixes. They're too hard to play at a position against a player who's shown tons of aggression. That's one thing. The bigger mistake, though, is calling with pocket sixes, which turns out to be bottom pair on the flop and the turn and the river. That was just, either it's 1:30 in the morning at this point and he's super tired and he just wants to go to bed, or he had a brain lapse and, forgot how to play poker for a minute, or he has no ability to hand read whatsoever. That being said, we will take it, ship the 47,000 chip bot over to EyesofShiva, and congratulations for winning the tournament. I think the overall criticism I would have is look at your bet sizing issues. Try to be a bit more consistent with them so that your opponents can't read whether you're strong or you're weak. As I said a couple times, a good exercise to go through is force yourself to bet the same size post-flop every single time. You could say, if I'm ever going to bet post-flop, pick a number, pick a percentage, pick 40%, pick 60%, pick 50%, and always bet the same size post-flop. Try that for a tournament, try that for a week, see how it works out. If you're uncomfortable with the bet sizing, adjust that, adjust it lower, adjust it higher, but try to pick the same bet sizing. And once you've done that for a while and you see how well or how not well it works, then you could start adjusting your bet sizing, tailoring the bet sizing to opponents. As I said, I think this opponent is a good person to tailor your bet sizing to, because he's going to be calling so much. When you actually have a hand, you can try to bloat the pot when he's called you on the flop, when he's called you on the turn. Don't go for the little weak bet on the river to hope he calls. Put in a substantial bet, because he's going to call that substantial bet more often, and when he does, you'll make more chips that way. So that's probably a good exercise I would think would be beneficial to you in the future. Otherwise, pretty much well played. Let's see more raising pre-flop in short-handed situations, especially heads up. Less limping on the small blind, less limping in general. I think that's all the summary I have for right now. If you or anybody who is watching this video has any questions, you can reply to me in the comment section below, and I will try to answer your questions. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next Red Club Leak Finder video series. Go to redclubroom.com and look under staking, I believe. That'll give you more information about how you can have your hand history, your tournaments reviewed by me in a future video. So thanks again for watching. Bye bye.